Good, thank you. How about you?
Good, good. Thank you all for coming here. We're very excited. This is, in case you couldn't tell, more than we were anticipating. We're glad, oftentimes I've seen Facebook interesteds turn into like a third of them showing up. We're glad so many of you came.
You're gonna have to speak up.
Yes, absolutely. How's this?
Great.
Volume wise, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Awesome. Up more. I will do everything I can. My name is Garrick Maverick. I am running for the 37th House District. I'm a Dowagiac resident. I have lived in Southwest Michigan my entire life. And I am an absolute political dork and wanted to dive into this issue that is becoming more and more prevalent, more and more important, and is certainly affecting us here in Dowagiac, and is certainly becoming something that's going to affect us in Michigan as a whole. So with this, I've done advocacy for 5-6 years now, going to school board meetings, public meetings, and one thing that I always love when we have moments like this where folks want to get engaged, want to jump in, I want to go over just a little bit of how some of that works, because believe it or not, America does not have any civic education when it comes to how to engage our public meetings, how to talk, how to get involved in a meaningful way. So we're going to go briefly over that, and then we're going to dive into AI data centers and the specifics of the pro arguments, the anti arguments, the state of Michigan as we are currently, and then we're going to get into planning. We're going to have plenty of time for discussion, plenty of time to hear where folks' perspectives are on this. We obviously want to be, reflecting our community, and we also want to find opportunities to build something meaningful organizing right now. We want to be able to have a consistent, prolonged effort here, because this is going to be a marathon. This is not going to be a sprint. And so with that, we're going to dive right in. Levels of government. How many of you went to civics class in high school? There we go. Very basic. Federal government, state government, local government. A lot of this we'll see, folks, especially, we're going to mostly hit local real quick. I've been to plenty of public meetings where people are asking the local government or the local officials, what is going on in Washington, D.C.? Why is this person doing this, or why is this person doing that? They don't know. They don't know any more than you do. When you're talking to local government, we're looking at police, fire, emergency services, local schools, libraries, and parks, zoning, which we're going to be touching a lot on today, spoiler alert, housing and property services, local taxes and ordinances, which we will get to. Again, that's Mayor Bakeman here in Dowagiac, that's Sheriff Roach in Cass County. That is the people that we're talking about here primarily today. So, within state government and every other level of government, you have executive, legislative, and judicial. Again, we're going to be looking primarily at what is like a legislative body here, looking at our city commission, looking at some of our different committees that we can be approaching, and then obviously the mayor and city officials. So, again, local government, executive, city manager, county executives, etc. Legislative, city council, county commission, township boards. Judicial, your local courts and district judges, and then other offices. You have your clerks, treasurers, school boards, and sheriffs, and all that stuff. So, meeting formats. Again, these are some of the things you'll see most often than not. We have open town halls, which some of our legislators will do. We've had a couple in this room. We've had a couple over there. They come, answer questions from the community, open format. Pre-submitted questions town hall. We're getting a few more of these lately where folks have to submit their questions ahead of time. And then they will answer them live and in person. And then public meetings, which is going to be the most relevant to today and the work that we are looking at in the future. These are set agenda meetings. These are your city commission. These are your county commission. These are your planning commission. Public comment periods are within these meetings and are required to be there. And formal processes with time limits and rules of order. Again, understanding you can't just jump up and say something, you have to wait for the allotted time. And when you're making a public comment, understanding they can't answer you. It's not a two-way conversation. Public comments are comments to the board, and then the board can respond at the closing, which we actually just saw recently at the most recent Dowagiac City Commission meeting, where they didn't respond until the end after public comments had closed. Meeting conduct. This is where I'm not going to hold anybody to this. It's not my responsibility. I'm not your parents. That said, I do think understanding a little bit of how you can get things moving in some of these contexts is really important. Keeping your cool. I know these are very stressful issues. These are very impactful issues. These are issues that have real ramifications to our lives. but if you're able to stay calm in these heated conversations and these big conversations, it can go a long way. Respect the fellow attendees in the room, which I have seen overwhelmingly so far in the city stuff that I've seen here in Dowagiac. I think we have a great town for that. And then match intensity. It's best not to start super aggressive right off the bat. You want to match that intensity and match what's going on. If you see leader being belligerent or confrontational, feel free to ramp it up a little bit, but it's usually not going to start there. Document. This is the key that is really, really important. And by the way, this will be on our website as well, so you don't have to take like super detailed notes. Document. Take notes of the meeting, take notes of the minutes. Obviously, you can download those as well. Track policy statements, decisions, and follow-ups. So that's a big one, tracking what they're saying they're going to do and make sure it doesn't just get lost in, oh, we're gonna send this to a committee, which happens a lot. So make sure that you're following up. Did that committee talk about this? What was the committee's decision? Was it brought back to the main board? Consider recording your interactions or live streaming the event on your social media. We've seen some folks doing that here in the local meetings as well. Again, accountability is the name of the game. And so, for instance, and we'll get into this a little bit later when we're talking about talking to your reps, if you have a discussion with a city commissioner, with the mayor, with somebody like that, and you have a good conversation, send them an email follow-up and describe the conversation you had and describe what you took away from it. So we had this happen in Benton Harbor when I was doing some advocacy work there. City leader said one thing verbally. I put it into writing, asked them to confirm that that was the case. They said it was not the case because it was in writing, and they changed completely what they said, and it became a whole problem. But it's because we documented the conversation, so it's not just hearsay. It's not just he said, she said. It's here is the conversation we had 10 minutes ago. This is what I took away from it. Is this the case? Thank you so much. And that is one of those things that can really help when you're trying to keep these people accountable, when you're trying to make sure that they're not dropping the ball on some of these issues. And again, stay focused, stick to the issues, avoid distractions or side conversations, and it's okay to share stories and anecdotes, just make sure to keep it brief and relevant to the question. Again, I'm not gonna police anybody on these things. I'm just, when you can really button down your statements to high impact data points, high impact anecdotes, that can really, again, have a higher resonance than something that's, a 10-minute long story. The 3 pillars of effective organizing. Reliable information. This is a big one on this issue because this is an issue that a lot of people are getting into for the very first time, and there's a lot of people saying a lot of things. And this is also a complicated issue because every state is going to be different, every community is going to be different, and every single data center is different. So when you look at, for instance, the one, I believe it's in Tennessee, the Grok one, the Elon Musk one, they are just polluting their city with diesel gas fumes. It is like one of the worst examples of these when you talk to some of the legislators who are pro data center, when you talk to some of the people who are advocating for this stuff, even they are not happy with that situation. That being said, believe me, I'm not defending that situation. So when you're looking for reliable information, again, using primary sources, so that's your city ordinances, we're gonna be referencing those here in a little bit, zoning codes, which you can take from your municipality, but also pick and choose from other ones. Like, okay, is this city, we're gonna be talking about Jackson Township, for instance, they have some really great zoning regulations on data centers now. So copy and paste them. That's what we want. We want to see some of these things going on. So being able to cite those primary sources is really important. And then utility filings, things like that. Rely on reputable journalism, academic research, and public records. We're going to be referencing some studies. We're going to be referencing some things that, again, just have a little bit more veracity. If it's somebody with a podcast, doesn't mean they're wrong, but you should always try to verify what they're saying with primary sources or verify what they're saying with more academic sources. Be cautious of speculation, anonymous claims, and again, that viral outrage, which we're gonna hit on a little bit. That's also a lot of these tech companies' fault because they have prioritized a online outrage as their algorithmic model. But we have to try to rise above that when we're doing, meaningful, like nose on the ground advocacy work. Strong narratives. This is another really important one. Lead with easy to defend arguments. So there are a lot of arguments with AI data centers that are very in the weeds, that are very specific, very niche information. And hats off to anybody doing that kind of research, hats off to anybody trying to find all those nitty-gritty details. When you're talking about actually convincing people though, this is a numbers game. Like, this is not a internet debate, this is not a, like, we're gonna truth find in this moment. We are trying to deliver people reliable, good information in a package that resonates with who they are and what they're going through. So with that, I really do recommend trying to avoid some of the more complex, niche, and speculative claims that are bouncing around right now in the data center conversation, just because I don't think those are ones that resonate with most people. And again, we can disagree on that. I'm happy to have that discussion. But I do think those stronger narratives, and we're gonna go over some of those really strong narratives that I think a lot of people will immediately, like, yes, absolutely.
So you're not here representing city government, you're not here representing the data company, you're here on behalf of yourself, giving us instructions on how we can become more interested or more involved?
Yeah, so our campaign put together this event as part of our advocacy
Wow.
works. That's on the website, that's on the Facebook page, it was posted by our campaign page, and absolutely.
Great.
No, we're here to, help provide that information, and again, go through some of the more nitty-gritty Michigan context, and again, what's going on locally. Those measurable goals: establishing a theory of change, an end goal, steps to achieve that goal, building relationships and rapport with your local leaders, and again, then tracking those things throughout the meeting. So tracking what they say, tracking the votes, tracking the deadlines. So, let's jump into data centers. What are these things? Why are we talking about them all the time? What is all the hype about? So, data centers are these large industrial facilities. They are not new by any stretch of the imagination. They store and process digital information for emails, cloud storage, social media, and now, more recently, AI systems. They operate 24/7 and require constant cooling. These things, they work off a rule they call the 5 nines rule, which means they want to be operational 99.999% of the time. So that's where they get a lot of redundancies. That's where you get, we'll talk about some of the really bad outcomes that even some of the quote-unquote cleaner centers can do to a community. And that's all built around this idea that they have to be operational 99.999% of the time. All AI data centers are data centers, but not all data centers are AI data centers.
And
It's
not
like
all AI data centers are hyperscale AI data centers.
Exactly. Yes, so the one in Dowagiac is not hyperscale, it's
It
not
is
enterprise.
hyperscale.
Well, it's owned by hyperscale data, it's not at the enterprise level.
Yes.
So
But
they're
they
not,
want
It
it to
is
be.
hyperscale.
It's not at the.
it's owned by a company called
Their expansion is going to be
hyperscale.
hyperscale.
Yes, their goal is to get to.
Correct.
The goal is to
Yes.
be hyperscale.
Yeah. The goal is, yes, the goal is absolutely, where it currently is now is not, but its goal is 100%. They're trying to become one of these giant data
Yeah,
centers.
I know.
AI data centers are much bigger, hotter, louder, and more energy intensive and water intensive than regular data centers. Again, the internet runs on data centers. We know this. These are not the same thing as AI data centers, and you will see people try to conflate these two things. The ones that are being used for AI use different hardware, use different methods for cooling, use different, it's a completely different scale problem. That being said, let's talk about some key impacts on local communities. Water use. A single data center can use up to 5 million gallons of drinking water daily. Cooling water is often chemically treated with chemicals like PFAS, which are forever chemicals, to prevent corrosion and bacterial growth. Again, a lot of data centers, and this is something that is not reflective in current Michigan law, and I want to make sure it's a current Michigan law because we know these companies and their lobbyists, they like to access well water. They like to access local water tables because, again, their goal is 99.999%, and when they rely only on municipal water, they get scared that what if access is limited? What if access has a moment where they can't get the water that they need? So they like to have their well access.
So how much water will it go through a day on a hyperscale AI data center? Because that just says a single data center.
Yeah, so that is talking about the AI enterprise. So these are the big boys, the big data centers.
All right.
Yeah.
And the
So
one proposed here, or that's here now, is tiny, and it's proposed to be super big.
yes, so their long-term goals are super big.
That's what
We
they do.
don't know what they're going to propose. I am not holding my breath for it to be good.
There are operational correct
Don't
now,
have to be
correct?
better transparent
right now.
Yes, and we're gonna get to the transparency issues here as well.
Right now, they're not.
Energy demand, there is massive strain on local energy grids. Off-ramp loopholes in the state of Michigan also allow for further delays to renewable energy goals. So the state of Michigan has a goal, I believe it's 2040, to be mostly renewable energy. The problem is there are loopholes built in to say if capacity and demand reaches a certain level, they can just keep using fossil fuels. They could theoretically keep using coal. I don't think they would. We're trying to close our last coal plant right now, but we'd still be using natural gas to fund it to power these things.
Great.
Potentially, which is not great, especially when we're on a pathway to be able to have a more affordable energy system here in Michigan. This leads to obviously increasing pollution. This also includes noise and light pollution, which does not just disrupt people, which we are hearing reports from Dowagiac that it is disrupting people. It also disrupts nature. It disrupts the animals. It disrupts everything in those areas. You get these big floodlights and these loud noises and the vibrations and all these things. These things do have ramifications, and most cities don't have requirements for these things to research what those impacts could be, and that's one of the things we're going to get to as well. On-site pollution from these is also a big deal. They use diesel generators to power as backup for their source. So again, that 99.999% thing is very important. When there's momentary outages, when they're doing maintenance, they switch to these diesel generators that are huge pollutants, not good for people to be around. They can lead to heart and lung disease. We're again seeing that in some of these data centers that are relying more heavily on these generators. The outcomes in the communities around them are dire, and really,
So they're using Semco gas right now for
Yeah.
their power, correct?
I believe so.
So where is that power going to? The generator, the
Yeah.
backup generators that run constantly?
So backup generators are, if I'm not mistaken, allowed 100 hours a month to operate, and that's in the event of an outage, with a 50-hour of that allowed for optional
Their stuff
burning.
doesn't go out when our stuff goes
So
out.
basically, their stuff gets to keep going
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they get these allowances, which again also lets them skate by what is normally allowed for a company to pollute, because this would be classified as emergency use, even if it's maintenance use. So again, there's a lot of loopholes that when I talk to representatives and people who are more pro data center, they like to talk about, oh, well, these companies want renewable energy anyway. These companies want to do closed loop systems anyway. They don't, because we see that they're currently not, and they're allowing and asking for these loopholes to be put in place so that they don't have to do the best by the people around them. Jobs reality, this is a big one. So a big push for the data center issue for the last 3 years or so has been, these are job creators. These are gonna give you so many great and powerful tech jobs. You're gonna get people who are, displaced from their retail jobs. They're gonna get jobs at this data center and make twice as much. And it's not the case, and we're seeing even a lot of the pro data center folks walk away from this claim, even though it's been a very loud claim they've been hitting for a long time. Data centers do not employ a significant number of people. They admit this. Now our legislators are admitting this. It just doesn't. We'll get into a case study, which is deeply frustrating here in a moment. But again, these are really, really empty promises that they're making for employment, for giving back to the community in that way. And then we get to the transparency issues, which is not a small one by any means. Operators will often withhold key information like water use, emissions, impacts, making it very difficult for communities to ask questions, to get the ability to challenge some of these things, because we don't know a lot of the time. And most municipalities don't require transparency on these things, which we will also get to when we talk about what we can do from here. So, real quick, I want to open this up for people. I want to hear some of your concerns if they weren't addressed here. If anybody has anything they want to shout out. And then I also want to talk about maybe what some of these strong narrative arguments can look like that we were going over. Yeah, absolutely.
I've done a lot of research through TED Talks, through
Yeah.
Massachusetts Institute of Technology, University of Pennsylvania, various writings about all of this. The thing I haven't bumped into yet, and I've looked at Hinton on YouTube and other scientists who have been in AI, or in this AI actually for many years. What I haven't found out is, and they're estimating that in 10 years, the jobs are gone. The robots will be taking over what's left. And, there's millions of people who are gonna lose their jobs, millions of people. What are millions of Americans gonna do? And nobody's saying anything about that. Oh, maybe the billionaires will give them a stipend or something. Oh, yeah, right. What are millions of Americans who are gonna lose their jobs? And already I have a list of 40 that are on the way out. That, what'll happen? Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, no, so just so for folks who are in the other room, a lot of these data centers are not just not employing very many people, they're also eliminating sectors of jobs. They're making it, employment more difficult. They're attacking key industries. I mean, again, we talk about the creative arts, we talk about retail workers, we talk about factory workers, automation, and now AI automation. I mean, lawyers and their, I'm blanking the name on this, the people who work under the lawyer who do all the actual work. Paralegals, thank you. There you go. But secretarial work is going to be more difficult. They're going to limit the number of administrators and things like that. And these are jobs that do give people meaningful employment, give people stable employment. And yeah, no, there is not a conversation, and it's not even not a conversation. It's a neglect of a conversation because these companies are bragging about it. Like they're not hiding the fact that they're trying to replace workers. It is explicit in the, in the rhetoric that they're putting out there, that that's what they're trying to do.
And that loss is deliberate.
And that loss is
The
deliberate.
reason no one's talking about it is because they just want you to die.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They don't care.
Oh, no,
I
those
think
goes for
it's really
parts.
shady that they do a non-disclosure agreement before
Yeah.
they do any voting, or let anybody know what's going on. The corporation comes in very shady wise.
We did a FOIA request on the NDAs, so we should have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Large scale reality. They're wanting it to become bigger.
Yep.
Okay, if you want it to become bigger, what does that mean? People from National Copper, back in National Copper days, National Copper had the whole building,
Yeah.
but they didn't expand back, north, south, east, or west. They stayed right there. If this company wants to expand, what does that entail? They're already marking trees and land objects on Rudy Road. There's only so much land National Copper owns. Now, what does that mean? Do they start purchasing the homes from Rudy Road all the way to Save-A-Lot? People have been there for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years. Are they going to give them, us, the top dollar, 250,000, 350,000, 450,000 for each individual home to tear it down, to build up a AI center?
Yes.
The answer is probably not. So when you look at how some of these things can affect property values, in some of these spots they tank because who wants to live near the big data center? And so when you're talking about the effects this can have on local folks, and again, this is also a zoning problem. When we have zoning laws that say, hey, some of the poorer neighborhoods, and I live in this neighborhood, so I'm not calling anybody anything that I'm not, but some of the more affordable neighborhoods, some of the neighborhoods that are gonna be, able to get their first home, or they've had their family home for a very long time, they zone the industrial zones right along those areas, and we'll show the zoning map here in a little bit. That's when we get like the race to the bottom for folks that are in situations like many of us are, where you don't have another choice, and the option is leave and sucks. Sorry, bye. That's the solution that most of these companies are putting out there. And again, they know that when they show up, the price of homes nearby goes down, and that is a perverse incentive for them to then expand beyond that as
Well,
well.
what about eminent domain?
Exactly.
So that's currently not something that would be on the table for things like this because it's not state use and because it's an economic development use. The way these companies do it, it's not through eminent domain, it is through
So what
buying
happens if
everybody
they
around you and
don't
making your life miserable. They will harass you potentially.
They'll sue you.
They will make your life difficult,
They'll sue you.
but they won't likely have any chance at eminent domain, just based on what I understand, what the conversations I've had.
So if National Copper was zoned industrial,
Mhm.
and Louise Avenue, right across the street, is zoned residential. Does the zoning stay that way?
So the zoning would have to be changed, and this is where we get to some of the things we can
Right
do.
down the
Because
middle of
most
the
of these
street.
data centers that get caught up, they have to rezone. And that's a big thing that they have to do, and the rezoning gets to happen and has to happen in a public meeting. And the community gets to have a say, and if we don't like what's voted on, we get to do a referendum.
Now, is that done underhanded and under the table?
It can't
or-
be, legally. It has to be a public, open meeting.
I thought it was Anderson.
But again, this is also where it's really important, we have to lay out our zoning laws to make sure those public meetings have to happen
Yeah, but I
in all
thought Kevin
circumstances.
Anderson said that he didn't have to rezone.
Exactly, we're currently, according to what they think their current plans are, rezoning likely would not be on the table. But if they wanted to expand beyond what is currently zoned industrial, they would have to rezone. So again, it depends on what their plans are, we don't know what their plans are. We know what they say direction-wise they wanna go, but we don't know, like, will they ask to rezone this time? We don't know if they're going to.
I have a question. The thing that concerns me the most, obviously all of these things are concerning, but I feel like, what's the tax incentive? Are these people, are they getting a tax rate to come here?
Yes, so-
Or is there paying more, and they're paying less?
So we're gonna talk specifically about Michigan's tax incentives that we've put in. The enterprise level, which I believe is 250 million or more investment, gets to apply for tax incentives.
I wanna know
And
what the city did.
the city did a tax abatement, which they, from what I've seen, they did not end up following through on.
Correct, it
Um,
expired.
It had expired before they did it. So they applied for it, the city approved it, which we can have a conversation about, but they did not actually end up doing, they didn't get the ball rolling in time to use the tax abatement that they had applied for. That being said, we'll get into the Michigan state law a bit here in a sec and talk specifically about the tax incentives and how that is tied into all of this. I believe you had your hand, I didn't wanna skip
Well,
over
this,
you.
this is off the chart, a little bit
Right there,
extreme.
front row.
But the data center is also a target for terrorists, sabotage, war. Follow Ukraine, follow
Yep.
Russia. Those are the first things they hit.
Yep.
So let's not just talk about money here, talk about lives. It puts us at jeopardy.
We are anyway.
Yeah, and so these things are being used for surveillance technology, for warfare, for things, and that does turn them into potential targets. Again, we're also right by a nuclear facility, I'm sure that's a pretty high target for some folks.
Yeah.
Two, yeah, forgive me, yes. I believe you and then you.
I would just wanna say that, we live down about a mile from the Indiana border, and there's a big AI ghetto down near New Carlisle. And we're not worried about being next to that, because we're far away, but we do share an aquifer with them.
Yeah.
And we're on a well, as is everybody in our community. If they pollute our aquifer, we can't even sell our house.
Right.
100%. Yeah, and we're seeing that across the country, and again, we'll get into the Michigan of it all, but yeah, no, that is a real concern for.
It's not just pollution either, it's water pressure.
Yeah, and it's also temperature is another big part of this as well.
So on a civil education level, forgive my ignorance,
Yeah.
but I'm new to all this, the data center that's here now.
Can't hear you.
The data center that's here now, was that, did they have to ask permission for that? It seemed like it just slipped in, I feel a little bit ignorant that it was existing now.
Yeah.
So are they allowed to just come in, do they seek city permission?
Yeah.
And I hear that you're talking about zoning in terms of the residents expanding, but are they asking for our permission now to expand?
No.
So they are not currently asking because they have not submitted a request. They have put out press releases saying they want to expand. Their intention when they started was to expand over time. So we know that an expansion request is likely coming very soon.
But they have to request
But
it
they-
and the city has to approve it?
It is not terribly clear, unfortunately,
Okay.
because we don't have clear definitions in our zoning.
Okay, and so.
But that being said, it would likely come to a public hearing, but what we've seen with Saline, it came to a public hearing, they didn't have their zoning laws in order, and even though they denied it, they had to then undeny it because their zoning
Right.
was not properly put in
So
place.
the
So even if we have a
original-
public meeting, it doesn't mean that
Correct.
does anything.
That's why we're
The
doing.
original
that's
data
why we're
center
doing
though, it got
moratorium.
in how?
So they applied in 2018 to do the work for it. They ended up having a couple year delay. And they've been operating since about 2020, 2021.
It came across his desk and he said, okay, and didn't have a public hearing.
Correct.
Wow.
Because it's an industrial building, an industrial complex can do whatever they want. He just signed paper, here you go, and let it go.
So they
Which
didn't
is why we have to address zoning, which we will get to. We will have more time for discussion, so if there's not anything that's super connected to narrative and this, we can move on and we'll get to the more nitty-gritty things here.
And that's why I'm doing a moratorium for signatures. They refuse to put the moratorium on the city agenda for this Monday, so we're collecting signatures, so they have to give us the 6-month moratorium.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the threat of AI as a problem in general. So we were talking about data centers, and that's important. But a lot of what's motivating folks to get active about this is these aren't just like car factories. These aren't just, you know, widget factories that are making a good. They're gonna hire some people. Yes, there'll be some pollution. Yes, there'll be some noise. But you know, they're making something that, you know, people use day to day. These aren't that. These AI data centers are fueling AI. I think it's important to talk about what is AI, why is that a problem in and of itself as well. So AI, one of the big areas here is data collection. So these companies make their money off of our personal information. In many ways, we are not the consumers of these companies, we are the products for these companies. So we are the ones that are fueling their algorithms. We're the ones that are fueling their large language learning models. They use our information to train them. They sell us consumer goods with the data that they collect on us. If you've ever, you know, there's this famous apocryphal story about a woman who learned she was pregnant because Target sent her baby supplies before she knew she was pregnant, because they had that good of data collection that they were able to determine based on her buying habits that she was pregnant. But now again, I don't know how true that story is, but I've heard it more than once. So that's the kind of things that they're doing, though. You know, it's the thing like, oh, why did I talk about this and now it's showing up on my phone? Like, those are the type of things that these companies are doing and optimizing sales through these types of data tools. They use it to influence our opinions. I don't care where you stand on this issue, that's a problem. And they use it to sell off to any other private companies or nation states, local governments, municipalities. We'll talk about some of the surveillance implications of this as well. This is why, again, we need to talk about legal recognition, that we own the copyright to our own likeness, our own image, face, and voice. That helps protect us from AI. And then we need to talk about strong personal data protection laws, which are already far too late to getting to the party. We've been doing this for a long time and still nothing has moved on that here in the state. Education and our ability to think. So this is where we're gonna get into some studies real quick. MIT study found that AI may harm cognitive development, critical thinking, and intellectual independence. This is especially a concern for younger users of AI. You know, if you talk to a teacher, if you don't know a teacher. AI is the bane of many of their existence, especially when it comes to student achievement. According to the Institute of Computer Science, frequent AI use correlates to lower scores among students. University of Pennsylvania found that students who accessed ChatGPT while doing practice math problems did worse on math tests compared to those who didn't use ChatGPT. And children's, this is one that I really want to talk about for a minute. Children put their personal information in these things all the time. They do not understand the danger that these companies present. They're putting photos of themselves and their friends, they're putting their names, they're putting their school names, they're putting all this information into this unknowable algorithmic learning model, and it is being weaponized by these companies. We are now seeing, and this was recently under fire, one of these large language models produced CSAM material, child sexual abuse material, of AI generated, and that is something that these things are possible to be used for, is to create predatory content, and it is being fed by our children because they're putting their information, they're putting photos, they're putting all these things in. It is able to be used in this way. This includes also revenge images against a partner. You know, there are going to be, and there are currently cases where, you know, high school girls, middle school girls are having pictures of them generated by classmates and shared around. And that is horrifying. And that is something that these companies are not being held to account for. And that is something that, again, is producing child sexual abuse material. These are abuse generating machines. I like to call them demon technology, colloquially.
The key, like one of the biggest defenders of this is Elon Musk and Twitter, because there have been multiple occasions of someone posting a picture of a child and saying, Grok, take her clothes off, and Grok takes her clothes off.
Yeah.
So it's
Again,
not
that's
just AI
what-
generated kids, it's real kids.
So it is appealing to some
They
of-
just put constraints on
Yeah.
because of that.
These things have to be legislated. We can't rely on these companies to self-regulate these things, and we need to keep them accountable when these systems break. So, strict limits on AI use in classrooms, I think, is a no-brainer. Obviously, enforceable age restrictions on social media and AI platforms, holding platforms responsible for those who are able to get through, and platform accountability for algorithmic harm and generated materials. They can't be a system that says, oh, we have no control over this thing that gets produced, and then produce CSAM material. You just can't do both.
How are we gonna actually accomplish that? We
Yeah.
have no safety mechanisms in AI at all.
Yeah.
No safety, for people, for humans.
Yeah, you hold them legally liable for anything that's created
They
and
have more
let
money
people
than we do,
sue.
they got the court system all wrapped up, and the emperor has taken all restrictions away from them.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, hey, I'm not gonna say that this, in our current federal landscape, is gonna be difficult because our current administration is
Never gonna
pro
happen.
data center.
Never happened.
That being said, you know, there are things we can do locally to start moving the ball and being an example that we can start to replicate, and as more states and municipalities start to reflect that, it starts to move the needle federally as well. Again, it's gonna take time. This is not something that's gonna happen overnight. This is not something that happens. Any kind of big shift in policy like this takes sometimes years, sometimes decades.
You
But
know how
again,
quickly AI is growing?
oh, I know. You
Class
personally,
action lawsuits.
what was that?
Class action lawsuits.
Class action lawsuits, and again, that's where the AG can also step in for some of these things as well.
And pay attention on all sides to where the candidates are getting their money from, their funding.
Absolutely.
Midterms are coming up, and that's where we need to start.
Yeah. And now with that, I want to talk about surveillance. Companies like Palantir are weaponizing AI tools to create a literal police state, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. They're collecting and analyzing police data. They're asking police precincts to start collecting more data and more even DNA data, things of that sort. They are building detailed profiles of individuals that is on their website. It's not hard to find. All of us. They are deploying facial recognition and biometric tracking technologies, including iris detection technologies, which I saw one report say they can track you from 40 feet away through a mirror. So not good, like this is Orwellian, this is horrifying, and we're seeing some of the outcomes of these already play out. They literally rolled out predictive policing models that just targeted minority communities. Like they just were discriminating based on, you know, the poverty level and the race of the people. And they had to get rid of these systems because they were so bad at predicting crime. They are horrifying, and they are things that they are actively working on, actively advocating for. They're testing out in other countries right now, in the Middle East, and you know, certain countries we're not going to be talking about today. But they are actively working on ways to surveil and control populations. And that is not conspiracy. Peter Thiel just says it. Like, he doesn't even hide the fact that he's doing it. He's like, no, this is sick. We're gonna set up a system where we can tactically, like, shoot a missile at an individual from 100 miles away with a piece of technology. Like, this is the things that they're bragging about doing and that they're currently working on with these AI models.
I can think of the person.
Influence. Big tech and data companies are doing everything they can to gain more power, money, and influence with working people directly in the crosshairs. Time after time, these companies have sacrificed the well-being of the American people for the ability to make another dollar. So again, we've known this for over a decade now, that Instagram makes teenagers want to kill themselves. Like, just to put it bluntly, like, we know these algorithms are designed to immiserate people, especially young people, and ChatGPT is even worse somehow, because there are kids using these things as therapists, there are kids using these things as friends. The social isolation that is resulting from the rollout of this technology with no boundaries, no requirements, no regulations, is poisoning people's minds in like a very literal sense. Yes.
To the point of narrative, ChatGPT has killed 15 people. That is the same body count as Richard the Night Stalker Ramirez. And they
Yeah.
want to put that in your kid's school and in your phone.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Costs more in electricity too, like triple.
It's a bottle of water every time you put a chat prompt into ChatGPT. You're just dumping a bottle of water on the ground. So, with that being said, they are actively working to replace people like service workers, again, legal aids, things like that. They are creating the gig economy, which we all hated and was miserable and bad. So they have removed full-time employment rights from entire classes of people. They are deliberately causing mental health crises in order to increase social media viewing times. And again, generative AI is an existential threat to every creative laborer in our communities. And this is not just Hollywood actors. This is your photography friends. These are your friends who do graphic design work, that do marketing work, that do copywriting work. These are your friends that are, doing meaningful and impactful creative works that underpin a lot of our economy. A lot of people's second gig is a creative job. A lot of people's second gig is being automated away to where people don't have that opportunity. So that is real concerning, I think, to many, many working people, because it will directly impact your ability to make a living. Rebuilding labor rights, again, we have to be engaging with strong unionization efforts, including the gig worker problem, which we're seeing many states address through just getting rid of the loopholes for allowing them to be individual contractors. Arts and arts appreciation programs, all these types of things that can actually help move the culture in a direction that understands these things are bad. That being said,
can we go back to that other one just for a minute? You've used a pronoun there.
Yes,
Please make
where?
clear. On your bullet there, our policy proposals.
Yes.
Who is our?
Maverick for Michigan, the campaign.
Your campaign?
Yes, so this is our campaign's, what our policy proposals would be
Okay,
in
so
response
on
to these
number
things.
2 where it says.
I don't want to, my goal, and I'll be very transparent, I did not want to turn this into explicitly only a campaign event. I just wanted to make sure that I
Right,
said
and you're
in the
doing an
presentation
excellent job,
what we
but
would
when
want
you're
to do.
saying giving tax incentives,
Mhm.
notice after that, it says to local businesses.
Local businesses,
Yes.
small businesses,
Okay.
co-ops, creative laborers.
Thank you for clarifying.
Not big tech companies.
Instead of.
Yes.
Yeah,
But we have
thank
to pay
you.
the electric bill.
Okay. So, common arguments for data centers. So somebody asked me like, hey, I want to know what these people are arguing for. So let's talk about
He's
it.
doing
And I promise I did my due diligence.
Yes,
I
you
sat
did.
down with I got coffee with a couple people. I actually talked to the person who wrote some of the Michigan legislation. This is what they're selling, and it's not much. Investment. So AI data centers can expand local tax bases and assume this assumes that the municipality doesn't give them tax abatements, which they can. With this, I want to take just a moment. I grew up in Benton Harbor for the early parts of my life. I've lived in Southwest Michigan my whole life. For those who don't know, Benton Harbor is basically owned by Whirlpool Corporation. And it is still a nightmare. It has not made Benton Harbor thrive more. It has not helped people. I've known people, family members and friends who have worked at the incredible jobs that Whirlpool offers, which are call center jobs where your schedule changes every 3 months and you make the same wage you would make at Meijer, basically. These are not jobs and investments that really act, because again, these companies would not choose to be here if it was going to cost them more than going somewhere else. So when we talk about investment, that investment isn't necessarily going to scale more than if we just invested heavier in smaller businesses that will also per capita do less but collectively do more. And so when we're talking about some of these things, again, I've worked the PGA Tour, coincidentally not here but in Wisconsin. When the PGA comes to town, which is a big thing with Harbor Shores and all that in the city of Benton Harbor, a lot of the downtown businesses close during the PGA because people don't go to them. Because when you go to the PGA, as someone who's had to work it, all their food is on site. All their drinks are on site. They go to the hotel, they go to the golf course, and then they go to the hotel, and then they go to the golf course. They don't go. There are bars that are in the middle of the golf course that shut down for the week because no one goes to them. So when you talk about what these companies can offer to us locally, that outside investment, it is more times than not, if not always, an empty promise with a big number that looks good, but in reality does not actually do much. Again, the state of Michigan still had to forgive massive debt for the Benton Harbor School District because for some reason the property taxes for Whirlpool didn't cover it. So that's where these things, again, they're big promises, but they don't deliver. Utility use. One of the more novel claims is that allowing data centers would actually lower utility costs. Yeah, I know. Find the sarcasm in my voice. I challenge you. This claim is based on the theory that price increases are due to smaller, are due to the smaller user base, and not because these companies are greedy, and the growth of inefficient development models. So again, when we talk about how we expand, zoning is important in both directions on this. We need to zone so that these data centers can't run roughshod over our towns. We also need to zone so that our municipal services are more efficient. So when you do big McMansions 3 miles from downtown, the cost of energy is going to go up for everybody because these are less efficient models for building housing. And so when you build denser housing, when you allow for people to choose the kind of houses that they want to live in with more options, you can lower some of these prices. But again, the theory here is because we have less users, that it's more expensive, and that these centers would magically make these companies lower costs, which I've never seen happen.
That is magical thinking.
In my life.
Yeah.
But again, I think one of the issues that I've seen is that there's a lot of trust given to these companies that have at every turn said, you should not trust me. Incentives. This is the other big one, which I think there is actually some legitimacy to, but again, it comes back to the first thing. Data centers can offer community benefits agreements if your town's leadership properly leverages the opportunity. That's the key there. We do not have, the people advocating for AI data centers do not have toolkits for local legislators on how to get advantage, like how to take advantage of these opportunities. They're saying, hey, person who was elected to city commission who, again, is a great, awesome community member, but maybe doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of knowledge here, you figure out how to get what you can get out of these corporations. That's not how this is going to work effectively, but they do have the opportunity to leverage these opportunities. These can be used for things like infrastructure investment, school investment, but again, as you can see, these are also things that our state could just help support more. So when you talk about these things, I see a lot of people try to use like, oh, these companies will do this work for us. It's like, what if we just didn't give them tax cuts and did it ourselves? And then we didn't have to rely on them to do what they never say they do. You know, so again, to me, it's just this, again, magical thinking, like you said, of like, oh, these companies will do what's best. Which again, we famously just had a presidential candidate who just said, I was shocked that the corporations didn't do good. And it's like, what? You're 50-something years old, 60 years old, what are you talking about? So let's discuss real quick. When we think about the negative impacts of things like AI, so some of the things that they can actually, so AI specifically, not just data centers, when we think about those negative impacts, what groups of people can you imagine being harmed by these things? We talked about children, we talked about workers, and what do you think would be a way to engage with those people on this topic? So I want us to think a little bit more strategically here. So what's a group you think would be impacted, and how would you talk to that person?
Human beings.
100%. And I think a lot of this does is just like, hey, you're a person, let's talk about the fact that these places are literally creating sexual abuse material for children. Like,
This is a straw man, because it only happened to me, as far as I know. I called the city to complain about all the noise, because I live on Louise Avenue in Ward 3, where the data center is now. And I said, hey, can you send someone out here with a decibel meter to just check the noise, because it's noise pollution. And I'm not kidding, she asked me why I haven't gone over there to talk to them myself.
Because they come at you with guns,
I'm
that's
not
why.
the authority.
Wow.
I called the
Come on.
police for help. I've got a wife, I've got a kid.
Right.
I can't go outside because all the noise. And they asked me, well, why don't you do something about it?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I
How
would
does
say
that make
this,
sense?
they are discharging hot water into the Dowagiac Creek currently. My stepdad owns the 48 acres at the end of Louise. He brought Mayor Bakeman down, showed him the hot water, showed him where it was going, and he said he would look into it, however, it's still happening.
Yeah.
So we called the Drain Commission to come out and look at it.
They're assholes.
and that's where this problem is even more. So we'll hear a lot of pro data center folks brag about all of these things Michigan have regulated, which they've regulated some things, but only for data centers that are big enough to receive the tax benefits. So these are not binding to the data center here in our town. They don't have to go by. So our current state law, which we're about to get to, requires municipal water, and it has to go through the waste as well. It can't be dumped according to state law for the large ones that get the tax benefits.
Yeah, but
But these ones don't have to do that because the law only applies to the enterprise data centers that receive tax benefits. It does not apply to all data centers, and that's a problem. Like
So I'm
that's
sure
a
most of the people here know that Sunstream contaminated all of that land in the 60s.
Yes, it did.
All
Yes,
of
it
it.
did.
And my stepdad just got his land clear.
yeah.
there's still equipment on there, he's still waiting for the government to come and remove the equipment, but it's all been decommissioned.
Burn it.
Everything was tested safe last year, and now they're discharging into our lake again.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Because
That's why I'm here,
once
because
contaminated, so it's
they're
okay to
contaminating our
contaminate
property.
again.
And that's where the glibness of some of the folks that are pro data center really bothers me, because they will say these enterprise centers don't pollute water.
Oh.
Well, cool, if they get the tax
they
cuts and they
don't
have,
use water.
but these ones do.
So
Like the
who
one that's
is
in our town
monitoring-
does.
Who is monitoring the water that's going in to the building?
And who's
right now-
Who is
monitoring the abandoned
monitoring the
well
water
underneath?
that is coming out of the building?
telling
Because
you
if
it's
it's going
airborne.
in the building at 5 degrees, it needs to come out at 5 degrees.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
it's
that's where
steaming
the
down the road, just so you know. If
that's
you
where
drive
the
out Rudy Road
requirement
and
for
they're doing it,
municipal
it
systems
steams
is
a
important.
river right down the road.
Because right now there isn't anybody, as far as I know, that's monitoring where they're dumping this water, because they don't have to legally. They don't have to disclose that. But you would have the water meter to see where how much is coming in. Like they can look that up for you, but they don't necessarily have a way, because these data centers are not being mandated by law to report these things. I agree. That's why we're here. It doesn't make sense.
Basically, this
These
is a government for the
organizations
rich, for the
They're
well, for the
building
real
these
rich.
hyperscalers,
Not
and
for
you're
us.
talking about a small one.
Yeah.
This is a small
This is
data
30.
center
It's a teeny
here.
one.
30,
What
it's
it
tiny.
does to the water,
Yeah.
what it does, there is absolutely no rules, no regulations, they abide by nothing.
Yeah.
They do not consider, I mean, maybe the state, maybe, if we get the right state government, which we currently do not have, to protect and put some teeth into these regulations.
Yeah.
But as far as anybody getting in for the data centers, do you know what they do to the community if you try and stop them
Oh,
from
those cities.
polluting? From
Yeah.
taking water out of the aquifer, they'll pollute the whole aquifer with PFAS,
Yes.
with lead,
Yeah.
and with glycol.
And again, because
And they
we
have carte blanche.
because we don't have
If
regulation.
if you try to regulate them,
Yeah, yeah.
if you try to
Exactly.
regulate them, they sue the municipality and the township for that you're interfering with their doing business, and they have a permit to do business.
Thank
So-
thank Kevin Anderson for that.
I do want to go over real quick the Michigan
It's-
law
it
specifically,
is,
because you
don't
keep.
let them in, don't let them in, don't let them in.
Don't let 'em in, don't let 'em
That's
in.
the only thing you can do. And
Exactly, and then-
farms are on the table. All our farmers are at risk, all of them.
Yeah.
That's right.
So-
What are the Michigan laws?
The Michigan law currently, they provide benefits to these AI data centers in the form of tax abatements.
That we're
So-
all paying for.
Yes, that we are subsidizing through giving them tax cuts. So they eliminate the Michigan 6% sales tax for these data centers, and they eliminate the use tax on eligible data center construction and equipment purchases.
So
they
how are
get.
we benefiting financially then if we're just giving them everything for free?
So the argument, and I don't agree with this argument, but the argument is these are funds that we're not currently collecting anyway because they don't exist in Michigan right now. And so them moving to Michigan, again, this is the argument that I do not agree with. They're saying, oh, well, if we're not making this revenue anyway, if we let them come in without paying for that revenue, they'll provide it with property taxes and other things that they're buying. I don't think that's a good enough argument.
But not only that, but all the money that they make off of it, it's not like they're putting it back into our community because
That
it's
is right.
going into another
And because they're
state.
not paying people who work here. Like,
There's nothing that's coming back to us.
so when we're talking about, that's what we're giving them under our current legislation. To get this tax cut, you have to have a capital of investment of at least $250 million. So that's, again, so that's how much money they have to promise they're gonna spend on the project. At least 30 qualified new jobs with at least 150% of the prosperity region median wage. So again, we'll talk about a case study here in a minute. 30 jobs is not very many. You go to your local McDonald's, they probably got close to 30 employees. Facility does not receive state or local tax benefits automatically unless the local government approves it by their resolution, which means basically we're not going to promise you property tax cuts, but you can ask for them certainly. And it's again the fact that they didn't close that loophole feels odd to me as well. But again, we'll talk about that offline. Facilities may not take electrical service under the long-term industrial load rate. So this is a good thing in terms of protecting energy ratepayers. If you are a data company who is providing this level of investment and receives these tax benefits, you have to pay the normal energy rate, because normally we get a subsidized rate for industrial load. So that is making them pay more for energy. A rate that so they would be unable to access like economic development tariffs, which would help offset costs. They are not able to get those, and they are not able to have a rate that causes residential customers to subsidize infrastructure and costs required to service the facility. So that's important because that is a real win, like a meaningful win. The problem is it only applies to enterprise data centers who also get massive tax cuts. This is not across the board required for all data centers. This is only for these niche cases where they receive a ton of tax benefits, like millions of dollars.
Credits run out, and their incentive to stay there is gone because of the tax credit. They're notorious for just closing up shop and walking away.
And leaving the municipality.
And then the city is left, they don't pay their taxes, so then we get the property back. And then there's tons of hazardous material on there that all of us are gonna have to pay to dispose of before we can use the building again.
So when I talked to the legislator who helped write these bills, I asked why, like, okay, so what happens when they just leave? What happens if they don't finish the project? What happens if they get halfway through and they run out of money and they quit? He said that the plan would be that the utilities would have an incentive to put a long-term contract with these companies, which would make them liable for paying for these things even if they close. That being said, again, it's trusting that the utilities companies are gonna do the right thing. And that these companies are gonna do the right thing. Because it is not enshrined in law, it is not a real thing. So there's a lot of promises and hopes, again, wishful thinking, magical thinking. But the current magical thinking on this is, well, in that case, the utility company would have put them under contract. That is not legally required, and it should be.
So AEP purchased the Jessup Door property. That property, the SEV on it is 17.8. They bought it for $255,000. So explain to me why AEP would buy that land for that astronomical amount of money without some sort of a guarantee, but then they told the media they have no contract with them. So why buy the property?
Because they haven't
Hey.
signed it yet. That's why.
You know, believe me, I would love to see us regulate these utilities companies more and make them public, because they should be.
Well, I find it interesting because, like, in the city here, some people have AEP, some people have City of Dowagiac.
Yeah.
You know, so then that would be your municipality, like, you live across the street.
Yeah,
right?
I live across the street.
And he's got city power.
Yeah.
And if they have city power, the city has to okay that.
Yeah, so they said apparently this site uses AEP for their power. So that is what I've been told. So, but that being said, the grid lines are weird in this town specifically.
Nobody has ever talked about, in case of fire at that building, how the fire department would respond to it, what type of smoke would come out of it. Because if they got computers, they can't use water to suppress the fire. They gotta have some type of system that's gonna take the oxygen out of the area so the fire will die out itself.
Yeah, no, with that, there needs to be, again, in our zoning, requirements for inspections on how they're keeping fuel items, how they're keeping chemicals. That's things you can have in your zoning, that they have to have that inspected, that they have to have certain standards on how they store the fuel. I'm not an expert in storing fuels, but that is something that you can have in your requirements. Like, if you have fuel on site, if you have flammable material on site, this is how it must be stored. And this is the plan for a situation like that.
What's gonna happen is that the local fire departments are gonna have to upgrade all of their equipment in order to deal with this.
Which is where the community benefits thing is, where, again, municipalities are supposed to, in these situations, say, okay, cool, you're gonna pay for a whole fleet of new fire trucks, because we're gonna have to be able to protect your spot. Again, there are no recommendations from the state on how to do this, and you're asking random small town community leaders to know how to get everything they can get out of these companies, which they shouldn't have to know. And so again, that's because the state has not regulated these companies in any real meaningful way. So, again, there's also in here, no later than 3 years after being placed in service, the facility will need to certify that they have attained certification under green building standards. Use of municipal water at the time the facility is placed in service. So this is, again, one of those things that requires municipal water. I know Dowagiac also, because of our industrial zoning laws, does not allow for an industrial zoning entity to have a private well, so that also protects us here in the city of Dowagiac from them trying to access well water. But again, this is one of those things that, again, is nice that it requires big tech companies that do big enterprise data centers. They're required to do that if they get the tax benefits, but that does not apply to any other data center. It's only those who invest the most amount and apply for these types of benefits. So, let's talk about the Switch Data Center. Is anybody familiar with the Switch Data Center here in Grand Rapids, Michigan? Okay, this one is gonna make you sad, guys. I'm sorry. In 2015, Nevada-based Switch promised to create 1,000 jobs and invest a totaling $5 billion by building a data center in exchange for key tax breaks. The continuing of these tax breaks was supposed to be dependent on Switch delivering 1,000 well-paid jobs. In 2022, they had a reporting deadline. Switch reported 26 jobs created with an average wage of $38,000 a year. Of less than $38,000 a year. Thank you. It's probably $37,500 or something. Instead of holding this company accountable and penalizing them, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation revised the deal to require less from the company so that they can maintain their tax breaks.
You've got Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
Yeah, that's a public-private partnership that should not exist.
Why are they
How many
afraid of these
bosses
people?
are on it?
Ooh, good question. That being said, this is why I have a hard time believing that any state regulation that we currently have is gonna hold.
Yeah.
Because when we have a track record of capitulating to these big money interests, these people with billions of dollars on the line, with corporate lawyers out the wazoo,
Who's important?
I just have a hard time believing that we're gonna be able to hold the line on already not sufficient regulation. So that's where, again, we need to look local and not just at the state and not just at the Fed, because the state and Fed are where these people are talking. So let's talk about Dowagiac specifically. We've touched on most of this actually, so we're just gonna review it all in one place. The data center project began in 2018 and has been primarily used for mining cryptocurrency. When I talked to some of our, when I talked to some of the pro AI data center folks, they were like, that sucks and is bad. So even the people who like these things hate this. They applied for tax abatements and those were approved by the city, but were not utilized due to delays in construction. Hyperscale Data made an announcement that their plans are to expand, but they do not have any submitted plans or permits to the city as of this moment.
In 2018, did any of the city council obtain crypto coins? It's $115,000 per coin. Did any of them obtain those coins?
That's fine. I don't know the
They
answer to
were
that.
gifted them probably.
Can you take those coins to Family Fair? Can each one
I
of
believe
us
the
in
Shell gas
Dowagiac
station
get
has
one?
a portal you can cash them out, actually. I believe the Shell gas station does. The data center is on the smaller side at the moment, and I stress at the moment, and its utility usage at the moment seems to be within normal rates for industrial zoning. Again, that is because it is small, and that is because they have not applied to expand.
Yeah, how does it explain where?
Yet, they have said they are going to, so it's not like it's not going to happen. It will happen at some point. The stakes of our situation. Due to the size of the data center in Dowagiac, they would not be eligible for tax benefits unless they somehow came up with a ton of money that they don't currently seem to be willing to do. Because of this, they would not be held to the standards required for applicants. This means they are not limited to municipal water under state law, and they are not legally required to cover the cost of their impacts on utility costs.
But he said there
Because-
was gonna be, they were gonna use the municipal water.
So that's because Dowagiac specifically does have a requirement in our zoning for industrial use. They can't access well water.
But there's
So-
no state law.
But there is
But they have
there is
a
no.
well on their property, and don't tell me they don't use it.
They have 3 wells on their
They're
property.
using the well that National Copper had,
Okay.
that's what I was told.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's something that I think we would. This is where documenting, like we now have a public statement from our city manager that he says they are not allowed to use well water. So then if we can find a reputable documentation of them using that well water, that becomes a big problem that, you know, again, is useful and you can
You know,
hit
they
it hard.
can't use well water because it's contaminated, because it'll corrode the chips.
Yeah.
So they have to use clean water and then they use the well water
To
and
dump.
they push it out.
Yeah.
Question. Okay, so they're not gonna use the city of Dowagiac electricity. I'm with AEP. They're gonna do AEP, so that means my bill's gonna go up.
So right now, there are no legal restrictions to ensure that you don't cover the cost with a data center at this scale. Right now, there just is no legal protection. Now, whether AEP will see it in their best interest to come up with a policy for how to deal with data centers because they anticipate legal action, maybe, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't rely on it. That being said, local ordinances prevent them from using the private well, as you said there, but again, that doesn't require necessarily dumping. So this is our current zoning map. The data center here is at the top right corner. I don't know if you can, yeah, here we go. So it's right up in here. As you can see, you know, the more affordable areas to buy a house are also the places where the heavy industrial zone is. If you want to extrapolate something from that, I think it's probably wise to do so. I believe the orange right below it is multifamily zoning as well, so it just makes you really think what the incentives are there for why things are zoned the way they are and how that has systemically caused issues with folks who are trying to live in more affordable housing. So, that said, let's talk about goals.
They're out of here. Those are gold.
With that,
Say no.
say no.
Green Charter Township, that's the goal. If things don't go the way we want it to go, the next plan should be what they did in Green Charter Township.
Yeah.
That's what.
Absolutely.
What?
Yeah, go ahead and, what was the,
Yeah, we left the doors on the council and we start all over again from scratch.
what was the Green Charter Township I'm not familiar with? What
That
was
was
there?
the Chinese batteries that
Okay.
they were, factory that they were doing. The people didn't want it.
Where is
The
it?
council wasn't listening to the people, so the people went in and overthrew the council. And put their, a new council in place.
There you go.
And if we don't,
That will happen.
that will be our next step.
So I wanted to throw, like, obviously, I want to hear any other goals that disagree. I wanted to throw out here some basic outlines for where I would like, what my thoughts are on goals. To prevent our communities from predatory corporate interests, like these AI data centers, to protect our environment and natural resources from exploitation and massive energy demands, and to invest in our rural communities and leverage state resources to expand that effort. So again, when you talk about when they want to sell us these things, when they want to promote these things, it is investment from big companies, it is the environmental load that will take, and it is, again, we need to be able to invest and elevate our local communities, which can happen through some zoning reform. It can happen through programs that we can advocate on the state level, on the local level, to address some of the problems that they are attributing to being able to be solved by these data centers.
Now, what are the Potawatomi Indians saying about this?
I don't have any current public statement from them. I know that I've talked to a couple of members.
Because they're huge on.
Yeah, no, I mean, the environmental concerns are
I
huge.
believe someone spoke at the, Cass County Commissioners meeting on it. If you look it up on YouTube, you can watch that on YouTube, yeah.
I just brought it up at the tribal council meeting, and the vast majority of council members are against it, and they're talking about putting out a resolution against data centers.
There we go.
So, just, you know, I know from, well, I wasn't really involved in this at the time, even though I had stake in it. I know that in Iowa Township where I live, when they put in the sewers around the lakes, mainly for the lake people, and then they passed, you know, I don't know when that's, what do you call it, where tax they, okay. Well, the people were so outraged about that, that they basically kicked everybody off, you know, off the council. And they
Yeah, no, I think
We called them, yes.
like, so basically saying that the folks who support these kind of things should look out for their future electoral success. I agree. I think 2026, and this is where I'm banging on the drum with folks that I have very fond opinions of that disagree with me on this issue. This is an issue that people care about.
Right.
It is a losing issue. It is an
Right.
issue that represents so much of what's wrong in our country, in our state, and in our communities. And being on the wrong side of this, I think, will have legitimate
Yeah.
ramifications. And I
Yeah.
think it is, something that we should take very, very seriously and soberly and not be flippant about. And so that's
Right.
a lot of the reason why we wanted to do this is because we want to get that message out. It's like, fix your opinions. You don't have to support the thing you supported last year because you were given bad information.
That's right.
You can just change your opinion and do the right thing, even if it's a little late. That's my message to that, and that's what I've been banging the drum on. I would love more people to be banging that drum to more people and get in their schedules to talk about it. Incredible. So strategies. So I want to talk about some of the strategies that we can look at here. Petitioning is the first thing that I thought of, obviously, because that's something that you can do relatively grassroots. Michigan law prohibits local governments from outright banning data centers if projects meet zoning and legal requirements. Now that's a big asterisk, but you can't write in your zoning law, no data centers ever, they're bad. You just can't write that in your zoning law under current zoning restrictions. Which data center proposals often require rezoning, which we talked about at the beginning a little bit. This triggers public hearings and community input. So the rezoning conversation is huge for being able to hold these things accountable and turn them away.
But like Kevin said, it wouldn't need to be rezoned.
So that's where we need to do even more than just relying on rezoning, because rezoning is the baseline tool that you can hope for, but you don't have any control over whether they need to rezone or not. What we can do is change zoning law, which we'll get to here, which puts other protections in place to ensure public hearings and approvals have to happen. Residents, so back to the petition though, residents can petition for a referendum on rezoning decisions. So if, for instance, there was a rezoning decision that we did not like, you can have a citizen's petition to have a referendum on that decision. That said, exclusionary bans are not allowed even under a successful referendum. So you would need to be able to prove the state standard, which is it would need to that it doesn't meet zoning or it doesn't meet legal requirements, which unfortunately we ain't got any. So we really don't have any, especially for things at the scale that we're talking about here in Dowagiac. So the petition process can be a move, but I do to me, I just it's something we can do in a situation where a bad decision is made that we can hope to continue to delay, hope to continue the conversation, but it's not necessarily what a lot of municipalities are looking to right now as how do we stop this from happening tomorrow. That's where I want to get to zoning reform. So from all available information, it looks like that's the best way to protect our towns, and that's through reasonable, specific zoning policies. And I will have some proposed ones listed up here in a sec. This has to be preemptive. So this has to be preemptively established before an application is submitted. That's why the time is so important on this one. And that's the best way we can protect our town from litigation, which we saw in Saline. Because they didn't have zoning regulations put in place before the application was submitted, it was ruled as discriminatory because it was in response to their application, not preemptive. Legislation is the other area which is harder for us to control. This is something you can address with state law. We need to remove tax handouts for these companies, and we need to put strict rules on how data centers are allowed to operate. We've left a lot on the table and put far too much trust in these companies to decide to do the right thing. Again, when I asked the representative, hey, why don't you just require closed loop systems? He was like, oh yeah, we could do that. It's like, hey, you gave them all the money. Could we get the little marginal things at least? And the answer was we didn't. But we could. And that's where, again, I feel like a lot of folks on this issue who I believe are wrong-headed on it got to first base and then just walked off the field. It was like, yep, we did it. We did the thing that we now can say, oh, we did regulation, we gave them the tax cuts they asked for, we said we gave some regulations, and now we don't have to do anything more because we have the shield of saying we did some regulations. It's not enough, it's not sufficient, and it leaves communities like ours in the crosshairs.
So would a zoning thing be like requiring them to have air cool?
Yes, so what we can do,
Not air cool, but a
so I'll come back to this, but I want to go right to zoning specifically to answer that. We can classify data centers as special land uses. So if you go into the Dowagiac zoning code right now, we have special land uses for things like banks, for things like gas stations, for things like adult entertainment places, or things like bed and breakfasts, all these things. Garbage disposal sites.
From 1995.
Yeah, and we can update these zoning requirements to include on the special land uses data centers. And that's the thing that these companies look for. I was looking on some pro data center legal sites, and they're like, here are the things to look for when you're trying to find a site. Do they have the word data center in their zoning law? If no, go there. That's the thing they're looking for. And so if we just put data center in our special use, that's going to dissuade a lot of investment right off the bat, because they know, okay, now I have to jump through some hoops.
Yeah.
Now I need to get approval. Now city people can show up and be mad about it, and they can say no. Other things. You can require proposed centers, and this is good looking at Jackson Township in Michigan, did a lot of this as well. Proposed data centers must provide an environmental impact assessment, studies on noise and vibration, traffic and utility studies, as well as air pollution and water conservation plans. And those are things you can require in the application process that they have to pay for in advance and get approved through in advance. Again, creating more barriers and ensuring that if one manages to sneak in, it's heavily controlled what it can and can't do to us.
Would you have to then, you were talking before that all data centers are this, but not all things
Yeah.
are. And the difference between the one that's here and the bigger one, so would you have to specify,
You wouldn't.
you just say data centers?
You would classify
and
them
that
as data centers.
And that's it, the
And
matter.
you would come up, you would have some lawyer write a definition, similar to the thing we had at the beginning. You know, facilities with computing technology that's used for blah, blah, blah. Like you would have a more legal definition to what a data center is classified as, but you could include all of these.
Size
under
would not matter.
Size doesn't have to be one of the factors. You can also have minimum setbacks, so that's a huge one. So requiring 300 feet from non-participating structures. So that would, for instance, some of these data centers in town don't necessarily meet that threshold. You can also require specific amount of feet from residential districts, and that's huge. You can do that. We currently in Dowagiac zoning law have that requirement, I believe, which is why I referenced it. The adult entertainment sites have to be a specific number of feet from residential zones. We can require that here, which would not allow them to be in a lot of the industrial zoning that is near people. And that's a huge, huge, huge benefit to ensuring that the people who are living in more affordable housing situations don't have to live with this in their neighborhood.
So
So,
when the sound reaches 2.5 mile radius from
Yeah.
its source, I mean, that encompasses our entire city.
the other thing you can do is require decibel checks. And you can,
Right.
that is something South Haven has that in their zoning law right now. That is something that you can require, and that has to be measured. There are like penalties associated with it that are automatic penalties. Those are things you can do in zoning law.
Decibel checks are fine, but also frequency checks. It's the frequency that does a lot of damage to people's health.
So that would be part of the studies on noise and vibration, but you can also set specific frequency requirements as well. Those are things you can do with these types of zoning reforms.
So are these being addressed?
This is me throwing this out here to you today to say, this is where we need to show up on Monday and say, we would like this, please.
for Monday.
This is a playbook. This is on our website. I'll have a QR code at the end of the presentation. I would love if, when we're giving public statements, we're not talking about this, or we're talking about that, we're talking, this is what I materially want from you today. Like, we want rezoning today, because if they submit this application tomorrow, they've submitted the application. So,
That's what we've been saying for
Yeah.
all this time.
And this
They
can-
won't even
this-
put it on the agenda. We've got it in way ahead of time to
And
get it on
the-
the agenda. And Pat Bateman sent her an email, or Kim and Dave an email saying they are not putting it on the agenda for us.
So part of this can also start, and we'll get to this, part of this can also start at the planning commission meetings. Because this is technically a planning commission problem. So this can start even beyond just city council, which it should also be at city council meetings. We should be at the city council meetings 100%.
So the planning commission is Kevin Anderson, which is the city council, which is everybody
Yeah,
else.
but planning commission, this will have to go through the planning commission at some point. And so this is where we can also address it to them. And again, for me, it's when we have an organized demand, this is what we want to see materially. So it's not up to their interpretation, it's not up to if we get enough of this or get enough of that. It is, we have a dozen people at every meeting saying, this is the plan we want. This is the first step of the plan we want. This doesn't have to be the end goal, but this is our first step, and it needs to happen as soon as you can make it happen.
And planning commission meetings are open to the public.
And they are open to the public. So those are also public meetings that have public comments.
How big is that room for? Doesn't matter.
They will change the venue if there are too many people. I've been at plenty of those that have had to change venues. I remember I was at a school board meeting that was in a room small, like half the size of this one. And then the next month it was in their gymnasium.
Yep.
So like there are times that they will find a new location if they need to. The other big one that I think is really, really important that we don't talk about, and some of you have referenced it with the decommissioning, they have to present a decommissioning plan for dismantling the facility and restoring the site if the data center ceases operations. We cannot have stranded assets. That's just the end. We can't allow it. That's something you have to have in these things, and it's something we have precedent in Michigan zoning law to actually do. So this is all achievable. There are cities that have done all of these things and more. So these are like really concrete first steps that don't require any kind of weird legal finagling.
I was gonna say.
And then I'll
that
get you in there.
If you could get that in there, that would be a game breaker,
Yeah.
because they would just go somewhere else that doesn't have that.
That's the goal, is to incentivize them to not be here.
Yeah.
Because we can't change the political landscape, we can't change the economic landscape, that these people are gonna keep trying. We can say, not here though, you can't do it in my town.
That's right.
Yeah. 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 100%. 100%. Yeah, like that should be in the state law already.
Could you say what he said?
Oh, so what he says is that plan for decommissioning should also be tied to a decommissioning fund that they have to pre-fund.
Yes.
Like, yes, and that should have already been in the state law. It's insane that it's not.
We have brownfield information,
We
so
do.
it would be similar to that kind of.
Yes, we already have brownfield funding, and again, these data centers can take advantage of those, but for some reason they like to find places that aren't brownfields.
We have brownfield funding, which Kevin Anderson is on the committee on brownfield.
Yeah.
And guess when he joined that?
2019.
2019. He
Okay.
joined all of the boards
I think
at
this,
one time.
this is problematic for certain. Unelected bureaucrats are always a problem. I think it's a timely. This is a mixed group here,
Yeah.
interestingly, and there's some overlap. We agree on a lot of things here, and that's good. But this is a timely time to say we have this happening because we don't go to their meetings, we don't track what they do, we get the government we deserve.
Yeah.
And I struggle too. I work. We all have lives, so we all have to get together and say, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and it doesn't matter. We need to have a group that's going to be like, who's going to cover the planning commission and who's going to cover that?
Yeah.
And who can we come back to report?
Yeah.
Because we don't know because we don't go.
100%. And again, like for me, this is not a partisan issue. And for me, also like when you again, and this is going to be the campaign hat for a second. We're fighting for working people. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care if you vote for me or not. We're fighting for this. We're fighting for the city of Dowagiac, and we're doing everything we can and wanting to put the resources in your hands to fight for your town as well.
So I will just say, this is a thing close to my heart. They don't make municipality meetings easy to attend
No.
for people that are working. However, at the very minimal, you can go to your local municipality and demand to be put on a list and get their minutes and get the agenda. So if you can do nothing else, and then set up who's going to cover what, when, and where.
There's
So
a ton
it
you
is
can do
this.
with that. So
Yes.
I specifically, when working with the Ben Harbor issue I was
Yeah.
talking about earlier,
Yeah.
I couldn't attend every single committee
Exactly.
meeting, but I was able to go through their minutes and see
Yes.
when they talked about the issue we were
Exactly.
dealing with. So that is incredibly important.
And you could cover the municipalities around you and then
Yep.
say, okay, so now we're talking about this, even if it's just something changing in zoning.
Yeah.
You don't know why, so I mean, it's not just here, we've gotta cover a lot of other places as well.
So they'll email you those and
They,
there's no
sometimes they are
charge?
reluctant to, I attend St. Joseph
They
County
are all
meetings.
they are usually
But they're-
downloadable on the city website.
Yes, usually yes, go to their city website, those are all open things, so yes, you can.
There's no
yes.
law requiring them.
There's no law requiring them to do it, but if you can strike up a relationship, and you can go to their website and get it.
Yeah.
They do post them.
If you know somebody, I'll say two things. First of all, we formed a small group, branching off from a party group. That's political. This is not political.
Right.
This is an issue-based thing. But we volunteered to go to every meeting. The school board meetings is volunteer that. It's volunteer for everything. I volunteer for the township meetings, but I'd already been going to every township meeting for the past 8 years or 9 years. Okay, and then we write up a little report. But if you really, what strikes me is that if you have someone who's interested in minutia, like I am, I'm interested in minutia. So I'd already read like all of the zoning things, like from the way back days.
God bless you.
So I was able to actually write some ordinances and things that got passed. So, but you have to, like you say, know what's going on in the law.
Pay attention.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanna say, we need to remember that If we live in the city of Dowagiac, we have 2 council people that represent us. You need to be calling your council person and let your council person know where you stand on this issue.
Yeah.
That
And I
this
see at
is
least one
important
city
to
council person
you.
here, so thank you.
You know, if they don't hear from you, they don't know what you think. So they're elected to represent you. Call them. They're, unfortunately, all of their phone numbers are not on the city website. That's another thing I think we should, complain about. Phone numbers should be available on the city website for all of our council people so that we can call them. But there's ways to find out what their numbers are, and there's ways to find out how to email them. There's ways to find out where they live. So you can knock on their door, to let them know how you feel.
Don't email more than one on one email, because that's a violation of Open Meetings Act. So if you're gonna email your city council people, you have to email them separately with the same information. 'Cause that's
You
considered
can't
a meeting.
CC.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, you gotta do each
Well,
one
not
individually.
CC. Also, aren't they supposed to use their government email for all of that?
Not necessarily, no. No, but anyway, the point is you can find a way to contact them and let them know how you feel. And that's, we need to be doing.
And your planning commission and your zoning board.
Yeah, exactly.
My name's Christy Gillenwater. I live in, I have an Eau Claire address, but a larger data center than this was proposed by Joey Andrews and some corporate investors 2 miles from my house in Denton Township. And that's gotten a lot of, it was gonna be a $6 billion, it may still have, anyway. Saline Township, this month, they were trying to stop a data center by denying the zoning. The zoning in that case had to be changed. The company was sued Saline Township for $25 million, forcing them to back out.
That's what we're afraid of here.
So the zoning but if that happens here, I recommend that you advise your city council and demand to your city council to tell them to bring it. Because the investors are gonna get scared and they're gonna back out. I have a background in investment banking. I understand what the financial trail is that brings these to town. They're here for our water, they're here to strip and pollute and abide by no regulation whatsoever. They'll be too big to fail, you can't stop them once they're here. But they're promising their investors a 5-to-1 return, on their investment. They are trying to use these chips, the NVIDIA chip, to run the AI, which is already outdated, outmoded. And they're trying to build these things on the cheap. These chips have already been, every 4 to 6 years, the chip is upgraded, NVIDIA is selling these data center operators warehouses full of chips and they are partly taking ownership in the data center builders, So, that's a circular, business deal, and let us not forget that our federal government just took a 10% stake in NVIDIA. People in the finance world know, and Intel, people in the finance world know that the chip, these chip companies that are running AI are gonna crash. Probably within a few months. When they crash, they're buying their own chips.
Yeah, oh no, this is all about.
AI is just a product rollout, don't get excited, it's just supercomputing.
So,
So if I wanna have a super grocery store, I'm gonna take 108 acres and make it into a grocery store. Oh, I have a super grocery store. It can do everything. It can sell you everything. All they're doing with these AI data centers is they're taking some old ass chips and they're blanketing acres and acres, and they're having the only way they can do it. You hear about closed loop systems? Oh, we're not gonna take a bunch of new water. Well, then why are you in Michigan?
Right. Well, and it's because specifically the people that are promoting the legislation, just to kind of go, because we are limited on time. But I wanna make sure we get out of here.
Just one more thing, because they discharge a lot of that wastewater, okay?
They do.
They discharge very contaminated wastewater, and they don't track it, okay? But you wanna fight them?
Yeah.
Do all of this.
Yeah. It
Do
is.
everything to get in and give them a headache on zoning. Give them a headache on every single little ordinance you can. They wanna sue you, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it because they can't do it, and they can't do it environmentally safe, because if they do it environmentally safe, they can't give their investors their 5-to-1
I just wanna make sure.
investment.
Yes.
It'll turn out to be a stranded asset if they build, that's all I'm saying.
And that's where, again, it is not a coincidence that the people who put legislation in place to protect us from data centers did not require closed loop systems, did not require water transparency, did not require any of these things.
Yeah,
It's not a coincidence, it's because that's why they're here, and we know that's why
They're
they're here.
here to go on the.
So that's why this is important, because this is preemptive. This allows us to say we've set these rules ahead of time, and then when they try to sue, you can say these have been enshrined before you even came in. So that's why these things are so important, because it gives us legal standing, it gives us a case, it gives us an argument. And that's why cities are moving to this model here. I do just want to say, okay, so we've got local actions. I would love, and what I'll do, if you sign the vertical sign-in sheet that's in the front, the one that's vertical, it has your email. I would love to start collecting public statements in a shared document that we can share with them in one place, so they can have a record of all these public statements from citizens. Zoning proposals, I'm gonna be putting that out on the web. I would love to work with some folks to get something more, I'll talk to you afterwards to get something a little bit more like it can just be passed as written. But I would love to, that'll be on our website that we can download and propose in meetings, so we can have it, and we can just hand them the piece of paper and say, here's what we want, here are already written zoning laws that would fix this problem for us right now. Attending meetings, go to the city commission meeting on the 12th, talk about these things, and remember the stuff we talked about at the beginning. I know it was a while ago, but understanding that this is soft power. We have to build relationships. We can't just hit the back of people's hands. We need to be able to shake their hand at the end of this too, because that's how we're gonna get actual power and actual movement here. And again, lobby your people. Like Naomi just said, talk to your city commissioner, talk to the mayor, get your hair cut and tell them what you think. That's something you can do right here in our city. So, here's a QR code to our website. We have the full presentation uploaded right now. We also have social media graphics packages already made with copy already written, so you can download any social. We got a bunch of slogan social media posts with pre-written social media copy. You don't even have to think; you can just copy and paste. It's better than ChatGPT because it was made by a dude. Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, so that is the ability to download those things and have them at your disposal. Thank you all so much for coming. We have to get out of here at like 1:50, so we got time. We got a few minutes. Yes, hello. I'm so glad you came.
In Michigan, House Bill 5399 has been introduced. House Bill 5399 has been introduced in Michigan that would prevent local officials from signing NDAs related to data construction, and where the developers quietly approach, and then they get them to sign off, and then the citizens never know about it. So House Bill 5399.
Yeah, so House Bill 5399 does not allow for NDAs with public officials. It's great because we saw this in Louisiana with Palantir. They made a deal to test out their preemptive policing, their Minority Report bullshit. They literally put it out there. The city commission didn't know, the public didn't know, because they did it in secret. And then it turned out it just was racist. It didn't help anybody and made things worse.
First of all, thank you for all this. My question is we're going into Monday,
everybody's very fired up, I understand that, there's lots of questions. We have really good information to turn this, like, we need an action plan for Monday. We can't all just go in and everybody be emotional, which I
We have
understand
really
and
tried.
respect.
We have really tried.
Do we wanna assign, like, certain people to go in, like, okay, I'm totally making this up, we can have as many people as we want. 10 people go in and just repeat those steps on zoning, you just get up there and like, no, this is what we want, and
So-
then what are you gonna do? And then environmental, we still have to talk about, we've got bald eagles, all kinds of stuff that, I mean, I haven't done my deep dive on this.
Yeah, if you sign up on the vertical sign up sheet, I will send an email, we can do like maybe like a Google Meet or a Zoom an hour before the meeting.
Okay.
Would that be, is that okay with people?
Right.
So then we can just talk about it beforehand?
Yeah, I think it needs to be repetition, if we're all saying this, and we can't all go in and be like, they're gonna jack up our electric, I don't understand. They're gonna do this to the water, yes, but if we have it legitimately, everybody has the same talking points.
Solutions forward.
When when your solutions forward and everybody is saying the same thing, it's gonna scare the crap out of the council. Because we're organized, we've done our research, thank you, you've done more than I have. Yeah, and like, I want you to look me in the face and tell me that you are not going to do that zoning, and tell me why.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we are actionable, so we're a verb. We're gonna turn them into being actionable and a verb, or deny it. And then from there, hey guys, what are we gonna do? We're gonna get you out, whatever. But everybody be consistent. And people are assigned to certain, I'm gonna call them verticals or topics, whatever you guys wanna call them. And we present that united front instead of more of a chaotic, emotional thing, which I know we all, I'm guilty too.
Yeah, no shame.
There is no shame in that. But is there a way for, can we
so
do that
make sure
before
to put-
Monday?
Make sure to put your email on, I'll send out a meeting invitation for an hour before, or if you wanna do it earlier than that, I just know with people work, it can be a little tough to do a turnaround.
The
that's-
rally starts at 6 before, so.
Oh, the rally's at, okay.
The rally's
yeah.
at 6, we'll be there at 5
Okay.
to get more signatures, and then the rally starts at 6, so.
Maybe so the folks that are organizing the rally, maybe we talk real quick at the end of this and we can try to coordinate, maybe just doing something early before the rally to have some coordinating. That's I believe it's just right over here, right?
Yep.
So yeah,
At
let's
City Hall in the side part.
let's chat before we
We
head
have
out.
tons of signs already printed up for people, if you want them. If you wanna bring your own, that's great too, so there's a variety of different ones.
We want
but
them to see us
We
while
want
they're
them to
coming
see
into the
all
meeting.
of us when they come in to go into the meeting. They,
11 data centers were stopped in Indiana, 11.
What I saw a statistic that said that 60% of them never come to fruition, so.
Yes, but the ones that do.
But
like
we need
New
to make them
Carlisle.
hate us. We need to make them think, oh, they are not friendly to us there. We're gonna change our mind here.
As much as we are divided, we are standing together for this thing to get it out of here.
Right.
So I'll send a follow-up email probably tomorrow, and then I'll talk to you after this so we can set up a time before the rally to kind of do some in-person coordinating. So, as we head out, this is the website, this is the social media packet. Oh Jesus, this thing is quitting on me. At least it's at the end. There we go. That's okay.
Did you learn anything?
Well, it's on the website. So there we go. There we go. So we've got fancy little graphics. Look at that.
Garrett, thank you for bringing this all to us.
Absolutely.